Here I am standing in a ravine or gully in Switzerland. And the dialectal word for this sort of feature, for this narrow valley, is a tobel. And this, in the pocket, is a Toblerone. And we can see that it has a very similar shape. We have this triangular shape. If we open it up, which I've already done, we have these gully shapes there, these ravine shapes there. This is not actually named after a tobel, it's named after a man called Tobler, who created it. Tobler is a reasonably common name in these parts, and another Tobler is Waldo Tobler, a Swiss-American geographer famous for Tobler's first law of geography, also famous for Tobler's second law of geography, but we're going to focus on Tobler's first law. What is Tobler's first law of geography? So Tobler's first law of geography says roughly something along the lines of whatever conditions I have here are going to be quite like the conditions I have over there, but less like the conditions I have farther away. Or inversely, things that are farther away from me are less like me here than things that are close to me. The farther away something is, the less like it here it is. It's not, doesn't sound terribly groundbreaking. It feels fairly obvious. But his great contribution was more than just formulating the law in a strict sense. He was also mathematically implementing it and giving it a more rigorous footing. So how do we use Tobler's law generally? In what circumstances do we need it, apart from our sort of general understanding when we look around the landscape and see what there is to be seen? Tobler's first law helps us when we have discrete data, which is generally speaking what we have in all circumstances. We go out into the field, we take some measurements at discrete locations. Even with remote sensing, in the end we have discrete data points. And we want to fill in the gaps. The validity of filling in those gaps depends on the data set you have, the footprint used, how much data you managed to get in, whether you have acquired the data at the correct scale. But let's assume that your data contains enough information for you to be able to interpolate between the points. How do you perform that interpolation? You're standing or you're trying to create a value for a particular location, let's say here, and I haven't measured here, but I have measured 10 meters that way and 10 meters that way. What have I measured? Elevation, the soil pH, perhaps precipitation, some value that we can expect to vary continuously across the landscape. We've made those measurements, and now I want a new value for it here. I have the two values around me. What can I do with those? Well, I can do a simple linear interpolation between them, and so I get a new value meeting up here. So this is my new value, not this one here, not that one there, but somewhere in between, wherever I am along that linear gradient. If I extend that into 2 dimensions, we start to get close to something that we can call the triangulated irregular network, or T.I.N.s. So there we are interpolating between 3 points, the 3 nearest points approximately, around an unknown, unmeasured location, which creates a triangular facet. And if our data density, our original data density that we have measured in, is high enough, then we can create an approximately smooth surface. When viewed at the right scale, it will look smooth. It won't, however, be smooth. We will have these flat surfaces which suddenly break at points to then move on. This is a known phenomenon within T.I.N.s. An alternative to linear interpolation between either double points or the T.I.N. model would be, for example, to have a continuously varying surface at whichever resolution you're working with. We're talking about rasters anyway, but we try to create a nominally continuous surface using something perhaps like the inverse distance weighting method, so that wherever we are on the surface we can calculate a point and it varies continuously across its This inverse distance weighting, I.D.W, uses a weighting for each data point that we consider valid, It's not necessarily only the closest data points, but even those farther away. And we have already said, according to Tobler's law, that those points farther away are less like us here. They're less like the value we want to get out here. So they should perhaps not have as strong an influence on the result as points that are measured closer to this location. So the points closest to me should have the strongest influence on the outcome of our calculation, and the points farther away should have less of an influence on the outcome of our calculation. We weight the points farther away with a lower weight, an inverse distance weight. The farther away they are, the less weight they have. 1 divided by the distance will give us exactly this, the inverse distance. And we can square that distance so that the values, the weights tail off even more rapidly. We can actually use a different experiment if we like to adjust that, how much it tails off. Similar to inverse distance weighting, in some respects at least, we have something called Kriging, which uses the variogram or the semi-variogram, depending on how you want to call it, which relies on the concept of lags. What are lags? It's not prison terminology. The lag here is a band of data, a circumference of data, if you like, around an unknown point. So we have our measured data out there, these discrete locations, and I go out some distance from this location that is unknown, and from there out to another distance, which we're going to call the lag, builds a broad circumference, as it were, around us. And all the data points, the measured data points that fall within that band, we include into our data set for calculating a new value. And we say, we calculate some statistics on that and calculate the variance of that data set. And then we go out another lag, another one of these circumference bands out, and we calculate the variance again for that band. And farther out again, and calculate the variance of data within that band. This then gives us our variogram, which we should see an increase in variance up to a point, and then it starts tailing off, and the variance should cease to increase after that in a standard, should we say, idealized variogram. Rapid increase to then tail off. As we go farther away, there's no more variation in the data. It's varying at a constant rate. But whatever information we are capable of picking up, we have picked up in that data set. So now we have the idea of things farther away influencing the information of our calculation less than things close to us. We have created a method for idealizing an interpolated surface, filling in the gaps in our data so that we know, geographically speaking, according to our models of geography, what is happening everywhere. And so perhaps we can feel more confident in answering the question, where's Waldo? So of course, one of the problems with Tobler's law is, as we can see up here, it looks very much not like what's going on here, and that was really not very far away. So it breaks down. There are circumstances, for example, around a tobel, where it doesn't work.